Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
There's something nobody warns you about. Nobody tells you that one day you'll be standing in your own kitchen. The same kitchen where you made 1,000 breakfasts, where you helped with homework at that table, where you laughed until your sides hurt. And you'll feel like a stranger in your own life. Not sad, exactly, not angry, just hollow. Like somewhere between raising everyone else and keeping everything together, you quietly lost the thread back to yourself. And the terrifying part, you can't even pinpoint the moment it happened. It was gradual, it was gentle. It was so wrapped up in love and duty and I'll take care of myself later, that you didn't even notice you were disappearing. Later never came, did it? I want you to sit with something for a moment. And I mean really sit with it, not just read past it. You have spent decades being the person that other people leaned on. You were the soft place to land, the one who remembered everyone's appointments, everyone's favorite meals, everyone's unspoken moods. You became so fluent in other people's needs that you started treating your own like a foreign language. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable, almost embarrassing to speak aloud. And now here you are. Maybe the house is quieter than it used to be. Maybe the relationship that once felt like solid ground has shifted beneath your feet. Maybe you've survived something, a loss, a diagnosis, a divorce, a slow grief that doesn't have a clean name. And you're still standing, but you're standing differently than you used to. There's a weight we carry, you and I, a particular kind of weight that women of a certain depth and experience understand without it needing much explanation. It's not the weight of failure. It's the weight of having given so much, for so long to so many, and quietly wondering if there's anything left for you. Here's what I know to be true, that wondering. That ache, it isn't weakness. It's the first honest thing you felt in a long time. The healing secrets I want to share with you today aren't found in a self-help checklist. They aren't 7 steps or morning routines or crystals, though no judgment if crystals bring you peace. You take your sanctuary wherever you can find it. These are the quiet whispers that tend to get drowned out by the noise of a life lived in service to everyone else. They are things women like you have told me, sometimes in tears, sometimes with a laugh that surprised even them, sitting across from me in those first raw, vulnerable moments of finally deciding that they mattered too. Because here's the unspoken truth that so many women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s carry in silence. We were taught that selflessness was the highest virtue. We were raised, directly or by the culture we swam in, to believe that a good woman pours from her cup until it's bone dry, and then she finds more somehow, that her needs are secondary, that putting herself first is selfish, and selfish is perhaps the worst thing a woman can be. And we internalize that. God, did we internalize it? So when the exhaustion comes, and it always comes, we don't recognize it as a signal. We treat it as a personal failing. We push through. We smile. We say, I'm fine, so many times that we forget we're lying. But you're not fine, are you? Not entirely. And that's not a crisis. That's actually the beginning of something. Here's where I want to start. Not with strategies, not yet. First, I want to start with permission. Permission to admit that something in you is hurting, not because you're broken, but because you're human. Permission to stop pretending that the years of accumulated stress, grief, change, and quiet self-erasure haven't left a mark. They have. Of course they have. Pretending otherwise doesn't heal the wound. It just teaches it to hide. There's a particular kind of healing that becomes available to women at this season of life. And I use the word season intentionally because this isn't an ending. It is, if you let it be, the richest, most honest chapter you've ever lived. But it requires one thing first. It requires you to stop waiting for someone to notice that you're tired. Stop waiting for permission from the people you love. Stop waiting for a right time that the calendar will never hand you on its own. The permission has to come from you. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that you're here right now, listening, letting these words land somewhere deeper than your to-do list, maybe that's you giving it to yourself. Finally, there's something that happens in therapy, in the really good sessions, the ones where something finally shifts, and it almost never happens the way people expect it to. They come in thinking they know what the problem is. a difficult marriage, a grown child who doesn't call, loneliness that feels embarrassing to admit at their age, retirement that was supposed to feel like freedom but somehow feels like loss. They sit down, they explain their situation clearly and articulately, and they wait for me to hand them a solution. And then, gently, we start to dig. And somewhere underneath the thing they came in to talk about, underneath the presenting wound, the one they've named and rehearsed and explained to other people, there's another one. Older, quieter, more tender. That's the one that's actually been running the show. I call it the wound beneath the wound. And almost every woman I've ever sat with has one. Not because women are more damaged than other people, but because women of your generation were handed a particular kind of silence and told to carry it gracefully. And most of you did. Beautifully, even. But grace isn't the same as healing. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really let yourself answer it. Not the answer you'd give out loud, but the one that flickers somewhere in your chest before your mind jumps in to manage it. When was the last time someone asked how you were doing and actually waited for the real answer? Not the "I'm good, keeping busy, can't complain" answer. The real one. The one that might take a few seconds of silence before it even knows what shape it wants to take. For a lot of women I've worked with, the honest answer is they can't remember. And what's even more heartbreaking is that after a certain point, they stopped expecting it. They learned to fold that need up very small and tuck it somewhere unobtrusive, somewhere it wouldn't inconvenience anyone. And then they wonder why they feel unseen. Here's the thing about being unseen for long enough. You start to participate in your own invisibility. You stop offering the real answer even when someone does ask. You preemptively protect people from the weight of you. You become so practiced at being manageable, pleasant, low maintenance, fine, that you lose access to your own interior life. You stop knowing what you actually feel because you've spent so long feeling what was convenient. That is not a character flaw. That is a survival strategy that outlived its usefulness. And recognizing it, really recognizing it, not just intellectually nodding at it, is one of the most quietly revolutionary things a woman can do. Now, here's where we need to talk about something that might make you a little uncomfortable. The wound beneath the wound is almost never about what's happening now. Oh, the present circumstances are real. I'm not dismissing them. Loneliness is real. Grief is real. The ache of feeling invisible in a culture obsessed with youth. That's real, and it's legitimate, and it deserves to be named. But when those present pains hit us with a force that feels disproportionate, when they hollow us out in ways that surprise even us, that's usually because they've landed on something older. Something from long before. Maybe it was a mother who was emotionally unavailable. Not cruel, maybe even loving in her own way, but simply not there in the ways that mattered. So you learned early that your emotional needs were too much, or simply irrelevant, and you adjusted yourself accordingly. Maybe it was a marriage, your first experience of love, that taught you that your voice didn't carry much weight, that keeping the peace mattered more than telling the truth, that a good woman accommodates. Maybe it was simply being a girl in a time and place that gave you very clear messages about what you were for. And you were capable and smart and strong, so you fulfilled those expectations brilliantly, and nobody, including you, stopped to ask what that cost. These aren't ancient history. They live in the body. They live in the reflexes. The ones that make you apologize when someone else bumps into you. The ones that make you feel guilty for taking up space. The ones that make rest feel like laziness and receiving feel like weakness. They live in the quiet whispers that tell you, still, after all these years, don't be too much. Don't need too much. Don't ask for too much. I want to name something directly because I think you deserve that. What you are carrying is not just stress. It is not just aging or hormones or the natural bittersweetness of this season of life. What many women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are carrying is a kind of accumulated emotional debt. Decades of deferred feeling, swallowed grief, unexpressed truth, and unmet needs that were never frivolous to begin with. And that debt has a cost. It shows up as chronic exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. It shows up as a low-grade sadness that doesn't have a clear reason. It shows up as a sudden tearfulness in the grocery store, a rage that flares unexpectedly, a numbness that settles in where feeling used to be. It shows up as that hollowness I mentioned at the start. None of this means you are broken. None of this means you've failed at your life. It means you are human, and the human heart is not designed to defer itself indefinitely without eventually asking, sometimes demanding, to be acknowledged. So here is the first real healing secret, and I want you to hold it carefully because it runs counter to almost everything you were taught. You don't have to earn the right to your own healing. You don't have to have suffered enough. You don't have to have a dramatic story. You don't have to wait until the crisis is undeniable. You don't have to justify it to anyone, not your children, not your partner, not the voice in your own head that still sounds suspiciously like someone from your past telling you to be grateful for what you have and stop making a fuss. The wound beneath the wound heals when you stop requiring it to prove itself before you tend to it. It heals when you get quiet enough, brave enough, to turn toward it instead of away. And that turning, that single, courageous act of turning toward your own pain instead of managing it, explaining it, or burying it under productivity. That is where everything begins. There's a word I want to reclaim for you today. It's a word that got hijacked somewhere along the way, twisted into something that felt indulgent, even selfish, and I think it's time we gave it back its real meaning. That word is return, not reinvention, not transformation, not becoming someone new. Because you don't need to become someone new. You need to return to someone you already are. Someone who got buried under years of responsibility and role and the relentless forward motion of a life lived mostly for others. Coming home to yourself isn't a dramatic event. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a revelation on a mountaintop or a sudden clarity that reorganizes everything. For most women, it comes quietly, in small, almost embarrassingly simple moments that somehow carry the weight of everything. It comes the first time you say no to something, not with an elaborate excuse, not with apology woven through every syllable, but with a calm, clear, self-respecting no, and you don't collapse from the guilt of it. It comes the first time you sit in a room alone, and instead of reaching immediately for your phone or your to-do list or any of the 1,000 things we use to avoid our own company, you just stay. You let yourself be there. You let the quiet be quiet. It comes the first time you catch yourself mid-apology for something that wasn't your fault, and you stop mid-sentence. And you don't finish it. Small moments. But they are the architecture of a reclaimed life. I want to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in conversations about healing, and that's the profound, almost sacred importance of stillness. Not meditation, although if that's your sanctuary, hold on to it. Not yoga, not breath work, not any particular practice with a name and a methodology. Just stillness, the kind that most women of your generation have been quietly terrified of, because when everything goes still, you have to be alone with yourself. And for a long time, that self has been a bit of a stranger. We fill our lives with noise because silence asks something of us. Silence asks us to feel what we've been outrunning. It asks us to hear the things we've been too busy, too conveniently busy, to acknowledge. And for women who have spent decades managing other people's emotional climates, managing their own can feel like learning to walk after years of being carried. Uncomfortable, wobbly, worth it. Here's what I've watched happen again and again when women finally allow themselves that stillness. They cry, often without knowing exactly why. And the tears aren't a breakdown, they are a release. They are the body finally exhaling something it's been holding in for God knows how long. Years, sometimes. The body keeps score, as they say, and when you finally create the conditions for it to speak, it will. Let it. There's a particular conversation I remember. I won't share details, but the feeling of it has stayed with me. Sitting with a woman in her late 60s who had spent her entire adult life being extraordinarily competent. She ran a household, raised children, supported a career, cared for aging parents, volunteered, showed up. She was the kind of woman that other people described as strong. The way you describe a structural wall, load-bearing, essential, always there. She came to me because she couldn't stop crying in her car. Not at home. Not in front of anyone. In her car, in parking lots alone. Sometimes for just a few minutes. Sometimes for longer. And she was ashamed of it. She thought something was wrong with her. What I told her, What I want to tell you is that her car had become the only sanctuary she allowed herself. The only place where no one needed anything from her. The only place where she wasn't performing strength for an audience. And her tears were not a malfunction. They were the most honest conversation she'd been having with herself in years. The car was a beginning. The tears were a language. And the fact that her body kept bringing her back to that parking lot, kept insisting on that release, that was her deepest self knocking. Persistently, lovingly, refusing to be ignored forever. Your deepest self is equally persistent, equally patient. Are you letting it knock? Now I want to give you something practical, because healing can't live only in the realm of feeling and insight. It has to eventually make contact with your actual daily life, with Tuesday morning and Thursday afternoon and the ordinary, unremarkable fabric of how you spend your hours. So here are 3 turning points, not steps, not assignments, just invitations that I've seen change everything for women at exactly this season of life. The first invitation is to grieve what was never grieved. There are losses in your life that didn't get a proper funeral. Not just the obvious ones. Not just the people, though those matter enormously. I'm talking about the dreams you quietly folded away when life got loud. The version of yourself you were becoming before someone needed you to become something else instead. The relationship you stayed in too long or left too soon or never fully healed from. The years you spent shrinking. These things deserve to be mourned. Not obsessed over, mourned. There is a profound difference. Mourning is completion. It is the honoring of something real before you release it. It allows you to stop carrying what was never meant to be permanent. Find a way, through writing, through conversation, through tears in a parking lot if that's what's available, to let yourself grieve the unlived things, not with bitterness, with tenderness. The second invitation is to find one relationship where you are fully known, not managed, not performing, known. This is perhaps the most underestimated human need, and it becomes increasingly urgent as we age. The loneliness epidemic that researchers keep writing about isn't just about physical isolation. It's about the particular anguish of being surrounded by people who know your role, but not your soul. It might be a therapist, it might be one true friend, not a social friend, a soul friend. The kind you can call and say, "I'm not okay," without needing to dress it up. It might be a grief group, a women's circle, a spiritual community where the conversations go beneath the surface. One relationship like that can be more healing than 100 pleasant ones that stay shallow. Seek it. Tend it. Don't let business crowd it out. The third invitation, and this one will surprise you, is to let yourself be delighted. Not happy necessarily. Delight is different from happiness. Happiness is often contingent on circumstances. Delight is available even in difficult ones. It's the light that comes through anyway. Through a particular quality of afternoon, through a piece of music that does something inexplicable to your chest, through a grandchild's laugh, through the smell of something that pulls you back to a moment of pure okayness. Women in pain often feel guilty about delight, as if they haven't earned it yet, as if healing has to be entirely solemn work. It doesn't. Joy, even small and quiet joy, is not the reward waiting at the end of healing. It is part of the medicine itself. Coming home to yourself isn't a destination you arrive at and then stay. It's more like a compass direction, a practice of perpetually returning every time life pulls you off course. And life will keep pulling you off course, because that's what life does. But once you know the direction home, you can always find your way back. And here's the beautiful, aching truth about women who do this work at this particular season of life. They don't just heal for themselves. Something shifts in them that shifts everything around them. Their children feel it. Their grandchildren feel it. The friends they keep close feel it. When a woman stops performing her life and starts living it, when she stops managing her pain and starts actually moving through it, she becomes a different kind of presence in the world. Not louder, not more demanding, just realer. And real in a world full of performance is the rarest and most beautiful thing. I want to end where all real healing eventually leads. Not to a fixed version of yourself, not to a life without pain. Because that's not a life, that's an avoidance strategy with better marketing. I want to lead you somewhere more honest than that, and ultimately more beautiful. I want to lead you to the life that's been quietly waiting for you. The one that doesn't require you to be younger or thinner or less complicated or further along in your healing than you actually are. The one that's available to you. Not someday, not when everything settles, but now. In this body, in this season. With all of this history folded into who you've become. Because here is what I have witnessed, sitting with women across decades of this work, and I say it without sentimentality, without false comfort, as plainly and truthfully as I know how, the women who do the hardest, bravest work of turning toward themselves. Not away, not around, but toward. They don't just survive their later years. They flourish in ways they never expected. Not despite everything they've been through. Because of it. There is a kind of wisdom that cannot be faked and cannot be rushed. It doesn't come from books. The books can point toward it. It doesn't come from therapy alone, though therapy can open the door. It comes from living, from having loved and lost and stayed and left and grieved and rebuilt and shown up even on the days when showing up felt impossible. You have that wisdom. You've been earning it your entire life. The tragedy, and I use that word carefully because I mean it, is that so many women arrive at this season carrying everything they've learned, and none of the permission to use it. They've accumulated a lifetime of hard, one understanding about what matters, what doesn't, how fragile everything is, how resilient the human heart can be, and they spend it quietly, privately. As if their knowing is a secret they should keep to themselves so as not to take up too much space. That is the final wound I want to speak to. The wound of the withheld self. You were not put here to be palatable. You were not put here to make everyone comfortable, to keep your voice at a manageable volume, to want only the things that are easy for others to give you. You were put here, in all your complexity, with all your history, carrying all the love and all the loss, to be fully yourself. And fully yourself at this point in your journey is not some diminished, quieter, smaller thing. Fully yourself now is the most complete version of you that has ever existed. Every hard season added something. Every loss deepened something. Every moment you survived, especially the ones you weren't sure you would, forged something in you that is genuinely extraordinary. Do you feel that? Even a flicker of it? Because I need you to feel it. Not as flattery, as fact. Let me tell you about the unspoken truth of this particular season of a woman's life. The one that the culture, in its obsession with youth and productivity and visible achievement, almost entirely misses. This is the time when the performance finally gets to stop. When you were younger, there were so many audiences to play to. Your parents' expectations, your partner's needs, your children's requirements, society's timelines, married by this age, career established by that one, figured out by some point that always seemed just ahead of where you actually were. The performance was relentless, and most of you were so good at it that you didn't even recognize it as performance. It just felt like life. But here now, something extraordinary becomes possible. The audiences have thinned. The timelines have lost their power. The expectations, the external ones at least, have loosened their grip. And in that loosening, there is a terrifying and magnificent amount of space. Space that is yours. The question is whether you'll step into it or spend it waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to. I want to talk about forgiveness now, because no conversation about healing at this depth is complete without it. And I want to talk about it in a way that might feel different from how you've heard it before. Forgiveness is not about the other person. I know you've heard that. But I want to take it further than it usually goes. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, the kind that actually changes something in your nervous system, in your daily life, is not primarily an act of generosity toward the person who hurt you. It is an act of liberation for yourself. It is the moment you decide that you are no longer willing to let what happened to you then determine what is available to you now. It doesn't require that what happened was okay. It wasn't. It doesn't require that you reconcile or reconnect or pretend. You don't have to. It doesn't even require that you feel warm toward the person. Forgiveness and warmth are not the same thing. What it requires is a decision, quiet, private, entirely your own, that the past has taken enough of your present. That the person or the circumstance or the version of events that hurt you will not be permitted to reach forward through time and steal any more of your days. That is a boundary, perhaps the most important one you'll ever set. And here's the one that tends to stop women cold, so I want to say it slowly. The person you most need to forgive might be yourself. For the years you